Yeah.
Too fidgety, not sitting in a rolling chair.
Maybe you're walking, maybe.
You're not wrong. Okay, just give me a
I didn't know you were gonna be here today, so I mailed you
Yes, I show them right now, New York.
Time magazine. What was it? It was something to do with in some cases. Well, in some degree. I'll be there.
That's all right. Whatever works.
Yeah. Send it to your home. The ranch.
Good.
Well, just see if we're good. Mom was in Texas. Oh, yeah.
Okay, I think they're ready.
You're just
Sorry.
talking about history.
That's all right.
Mine.
All right, good morning, y'all. Ron, we got your merge document, which I think incorporates our changes. We had changes to 2 articles, and I think y'all had a number of changes to a number of different articles. I think for the folks watching, I believe everything in blue is y'all's changes, and everything in red will be the city's changes. So why don't we just go through from the beginning, and then if y'all want to explain everything in blue, and then when we get to the red, we can explain
Okay. Well, normally we just leave definitions. Coming in okay, but on.
Now you are.
Okay. Normally we just leave definitions to the end and see, but when I start out, I usually just do a little scan through. And we had a mix of business, calendar, and in one place we used working. I took out the working, and later you'll see it eventually in here. And I went in everywhere that I felt like the days should have been marked calendar, I marked them. And some are already there, some are new, you can look at it. It's throughout the whole document. And because in San Antonio, at the end, we did a his, her search, because a lot of these contracts are 40 years old. This one isn't, but there. And so you'll see in there a few places, I went ahead and just put those in. We can deal with them later. So I just had them off my list. So you'll see that. And so I just put in calendar, because in just my cleanup of it, it's either a business day or a calendar day. And there's a couple of places it's not required. It's clear what it is. So anyway, that's just some cleanup you can look at. If you go down just a little bit, keep going. No, there it is, number 7. There's only a couple of places, I've got them marked in there and we can discuss it later, where we mention the chief and the chief's designee in a number of places. We don't expect the chief himself today to be in all of these things. So we did put his, her, but we did put the word sworn. I think it's, on our end, it's implied that his designee, we assume is deputy chief, assistant chief, could be a captain, whatever, that when we mention the word chief, we mean his or her sworn designee. Anyway, you'll see that. That's just a little cleanup, and you can take a look at it. I've changed it a couple more places. That's all I had on it for now. We'll come back later if there's words that which we think need to be clarified in there. So, all right, on number 4. We just want to be clear on this. This is in the management rights section, on section 2, on retained rights and independent investigation. We're not arguing that the manager and the chief have a right to do that. At times, they have to. We just want to be clear that an independent investigation is conducted by a third party not currently employed by the city. So we just don't want any misunderstanding that the chief or the manager decides to do an independent investigation. We want it to be transparent that it's independent. Okay, on A5, we both had some proposals. I'll talk to the team. I personally don't have any problem with it. I think changing employee officer is fine. We may want to take a little word search through the document and make sure that if there are other places that officer would be the appropriate, we do it. But I don't have a problem. And we added and this is lately in bargaining, just changing the times, gender identity be added to this list of things that both the association and the city agree that they won't discriminate against people based on that. So that's the only addition we added. So if you'll drop, unless you have something to say on one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so basically what we did here is just general cleanup. The reason we put officer in there is really employee isn't defined in the contract. Officer is in pretty good detail. So I think the intent here of the parties was that it be an officer and not have some overly broad meaning. So that's just cleanup there. If you scroll down to section 2, and if you look at section 1, you've got 2 paragraphs in section 1. They're not labeled A and B. Section 2, it's got an A and B. I read section 2, we have read section 2 as kind of being all together. A and B seemed kind of unnecessary. And then the last the last sentence in the current section 2B, the parties agree that subsection, or this subsection does not provide the basis for a dispute claim or complaint under Article 20. We have read that to encompass all of section 2. So having the A and B, I think it's a little confusing. So that's the reason for our changes. So we took out A, we took out B. We made it a little more explicit that that last sentence applies to both paragraphs. So that's generally the reason for our changes.
I don't have any issue with making 2 paragraphs. I think that what we have proposed is that if in fact there is a dispute that the city has retaliated against officers when they seek the association's assistance on employment matters, that this would in fact be the basis for a dispute or claim under the grievance procedure in Article 20. So we don't think we should have to say and prove that there's a pattern of discrimination. If in fact it occurred and we cannot get it worked out, we ought to have a right then to seek a grievance on it, leave that up to the arbitrator. We don't think we come in when the city goes, yeah, the employee did it, but it's not a pattern. We need 5 of them, or we need 10 of them before we act on it. Where just this imaginary employee or supervisor could be, we think, in violation of this agreement. So we think it should be arbitrable, and it's either a good claim or not a good claim on its merits.
Well, if I can explain, the reason that was put in there is because I think prior to this contract and the last contract, there were a couple of grievances filed, and I'm sure your side has a different view on it, but we felt were trying to bootstrap a non-grievable claim into a grievable claim by utilizing the association membership. So, for example, you don't get the shift that you want to work. Well, that's not grievable, but you could grieve it by saying, well, you only didn't give me the shift because I'm an APA member. Well, 95% of your employees are APA members, so it doesn't mean everything that happens to them all of a sudden should be grievable because they happen to be a member of the association. So I think that that's what we tried to, and we mutually agreed, shouldn't be there as a reason for a grievance. Is simply, you didn't get something that otherwise isn't grievable, and you want to grieve it, so now you just say, well, you did it because I'm a member of the association. If you have actual evidence it was because you were a member of the association, that's different. But we felt, at least during the last contract, or maybe it was the one before, there were at least 2, and maybe 3 grievances that we on the city side felt were filed that, unless you claimed it was a member of the association, actually had no basis as a grievance. And so therefore, that's what we were trying to avoid. And I think, frankly, there's a mutual benefit, so you don't have every employee coming up to the association also saying, well, you can use my membership association as a reason to grieve X, Y, and Z. So I think you understand where we're coming from, we understand where you're coming from. Maybe there's a way we can clarify the language to get to both parties' goals accomplished. But I just wanted to give you some background as to how we got there.
Thank you. All right. this article on union dues, we have had the ability of the association to invoke an assessment in the case of the death of an officer. And we felt this amount, 25 in today's world, just wasn't sufficient to try to collect that. We would like to raise it to $40. And that's basically it. It goes to, there's no administrative fees or overhead. It just goes to the designated beneficiaries. All right, and yours is section 5.
So we added this language in. I think it's generally kind of known that we assist generally with the employee side and the deduction side, but we don't really have any control over the actual when y'all are taking the dues out. So we additionally included this in the EMS contract. We're proposing this language for this contract. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but Devin, do you have any additional comments?
Yeah, this comes as a direct kind of result of CLEAT disassociating themselves with EMS, and EMS exercised their right in the contract to, as the president, to decide who gets dues and who doesn't. And so then, she made a decision to take CLEAT off of the dues list for the EMS contract, and then we got, I think the legal term is a nastygram from CLEAT saying, you can't take us off, and we said, yes, you can. So what we want to do is make sure that if y'all send us a memo, saying we need to add this dues, and or we need to change this insurance company to this other one, and one of your members gets mad because the new company didn't do what the old company did, that's not on us. So that's the reason we added in the indemnification language. So it's something that we're going to be seeking, frankly, in all three of the contracts on this article on the dues section.
All right. Well, we understand it. We'll comment after a caucus. I understand. All right. Oh, go back.
Can I just clarify? If you go up, Sarah, I think everybody keep going up. I think everybody on your side and everybody on our side understands this for the public that's watching. The deductions here for the death of an officer, that's not money that the city is giving. That is money that the association is taking out of its individual members. The members are agreeing to cut $40 under this proposal from their paycheck to go towards this dues for the death of an officer. So I just want to make that clear for anyone who's watching. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, and it's just initially when someone, while they may have insurance, there may be benefits, it could be line of duty, non-line of duty. There's all kinds of costs in this allows the association to quickly get money and help the family, funeral arrangements, bringing family in and so forth. All right, this is overtime section, just for clarification purposes. And I haven't done a survey, but almost all of the major police association contracts in the state, we have with productive time and non-productive time. That comes out of the Fair Labor Standards Act, although we have a contract that is a better benefit, which is permitted under the Fair Labor Standards Act. Only hours worked count as productive time, but on our side where we bargain, this is we're not trying to take out sick leave, but this is the way we look at it. Vacation hours, comp times, hours that you accumulate for the employer, those are all part of your total compensation. You get so many days of vacation or holiday leave or whatever. That's money owed to you. It's not without value because the city budgets the cost of that time off is part of the cost. It has a dollar amount. So when an officer who does not control their overtime can't show up and think, well, I need a car payment, I'll just stay a couple of more hours. It doesn't work like that. The employer has to order you to do it or ask you to do it, but when you stay, you get compensated at time and a half. Under the current language, which was in the last contract, if you tell me I need you to work another shift or whatever it is, and I agree to do it, but Friday, I've asked for a day off, and you said, sure, you can take off. Well, I don't get the overtime. It doesn't count. That week's accumulation of 40 hours would be -8. So I'd only get paid straight time. But I bought the day off. You gave me a chit worth $100, say, and I go to you and say, can I take off? You could say no. But if you say yes, then I hand you that dollar value back to you I bought that day off. It wasn't that I didn't work, I bought it because you said I have these days I can use. So we don't think that if you come in, you have no control of working overtime or not. You could be ordered to do it. There's all kinds of emergencies. It's an emergency service business. But then if I need to burn the time, which you have to use or lose, I ought not be punished for that. And in most of the major police contracts now, the reason we distinguish, we could negotiate that sick leave also was productive time. But the reason we don't, and we agree with the employer on it, is that the employee controls the sick time. That leave pool, which is money, that the employer gives to the officers through civil service or the contract, we don't want to have a situation where officers would work overtime and then just call in sick because they've already worked a lot of hours. If you do that, we agree with the employer that that's not productive time, that you should think about it because you control it, the employee controls it. So we do think that for the purposes of overtime, any leave other than sick leave of which the employee uses, the employer grants that time off. I can't come in and say I'm taking Thursday off on vacation. I can't. The employer may say no, I can't. Or they may say, hey, you got to burn some time. You're going to lose it. So take off Friday. Well, I already worked overtime all this week and I don't want to be paid in straight time for overtime. So we think this is a fair evolution from where we were. I think it fits with the other departments. And if you don't want the employee to take off, then you can deny it. At some point, you got to let them off or pay for it. But under today's situation, so that's our proposal. And C, I'm probably not the best one to do it. This was the language where we agreed in an MOU with the city to fill these hard to fill shifts by offering double time as opposed to time and a half. We think we would just like to incorporate that concept in so we don't have to have another MOU. We agree that in this day and time, shortages, demands on the police department, we want to give the department the authority to make that offer.
So basically, going back up to the making vacation leave productive time, the reason we did this for the last contract was because you all requested it. It was a problem that you all were having with fire. That was never our problem. And what it has done is it has created a problem because we have folks who are putting in to work to fill the shifts that need to be filled, but maybe they've already had a vacation day and there's only, a certain amount of time through your exception vacation, comp time, personal holiday, that you can use those hours to be able to accommodate trying to fill a shift that needs to be filled. that would just be, I mean, we agreed in the last contract to help y'all out because I mean, honestly, it made y'all feel better because we never had a problem with what the issue fire had going on. And so I just don't think it's applicable, for vacation not to be productive again. I mean, it was productive for the previous like 5 contracts or whatever, and it just was never an issue with us. So that's my only comment on that.
All right, on section 9, this is section 9, special leave. This, we have a provision, it had a lot of restrictions. We wanted to clean it up. Currently, through the contract and the court case many years ago, the maximum accrual for an Austin officer is 900 hours. That's, you get unlimited accumulation of sick leave, but when you terminate employment, you can't be paid for greater than 900 hours. That's been the case here for some time. So if, and we broke it out that if you have less than 16, that's your minimum. A maximum. So we have a second provision where if you've got 16 years or more of service, that you can get up to 1,400 hours for your termination. This, we think, has 2. It hopefully gets people to stay the 15 because there's a bigger payout at the end and not calling in sick. And instead of leaving somewhere in mid-career, this would be an attractive bonus. And we had a third category that was if you stayed 16 years, and in addition to the above, and you've not used more than 100, it was 80, we moved to 146 hours of sick leave. In the prior 12 months before you leave, and you've not used more than 292 hours in the prior 24 months, you can get an accumulation up to 1,700. So if you've been here 16 years or less, you get the normal payout, which is the maximum 900. If you've been here more than at least 16, you can get up to 1,400 hours. And if you've been here more than 16 and you separate, then you've been, you've not had a large number of use of sick leave, they'll pay you. This, I think, keeps officers here for a longer period of time. It pays them to not to use sick leave unless absolutely necessary. So it's similar to where we are now. I think it's just a little clearer, but I don't think it changes basically where we were before.
I just had a couple of questions. One is, can you talk about, also, I think the other thing you guys struck out is the good standing. So I think if you can explain that, but also just, we were curious when we first got this through email, you know, for most of y'all who work 10-hour shifts, how you came up with the 146 and the 292. Just curious, that's all.
So the 146 is the amount of hours that we accumulate in a year. To be able to do that, that's where that number came from, not based on the 10-hour shift or anything like that. That's the accumulation that the officers receive for the year, and the 292, which is the double that.
The the in good standing portion is, I would submit that the hours that you've earned are your hours regardless. And as we've seen historically through the last couple of years, there have been instances of picking and choosing who is quote unquote in good standing and receiving their benefits. And in order for equity, if you remove the in good standing, you get paid out for the time that you worked. Whether or not you think someone has a personal opinion with rank that you are a good employee or not. I mean, the fact of the matter is you earned the time, you should be paid out. And I mean, if you want examples, I most certainly can give you some, but I don't think we need to besmirch anyone's good name at this point.
Yeah, so I think that, first, I think, it's a very common disagreement amongst labor and management. Labor always feels, or usually feels, that hours earned are my hours, and I think when we look at it from the city side, especially on the sick leave, it's there for a specific purpose, and it's not this feeling of I should get paid all of them regardless. I just don't think that that's something that the city agrees to. However, I know the cases you're talking about, and I think I've had conversations with APA every time this issue has come up. I don't know if this is the right answer, but I do think we should define in this contract when good standing has ended. When are you kind of quote unquote no longer in good standing? Is it when an IA file is open? Is it when a complaint comes in? If you submit your resignation at 9 a.m. and a complaint comes in, but you submit it on Friday saying 5 o'clock is my last hour here, and a complaint comes in at 4, is it the time you submitted it? Because then you were in good standing. I mean, I think we should come up with a definition of when you were out of good standing, but I'm not sure that the city is, obviously our first position is not to just completely remove the in good standing. I think there are examples we can go through where I just don't think it's a good look and the right stance that the city wants to have, that somebody who has done X, Y, and Z is now going to get their sick leave payout as well at the end. But I do think that if we can define it and come up with a mutual agreement as to when good standing has ended, I think that will benefit us both, so that those issues don't happen again. As far as the confusion of when, if someone is or isn't in good standing.
I mean, I understand your position, but I do think Melanie said, I want to make clear. They fire you tomorrow. You get all the money that you're owed by the employer. So you get all the hours you work, you get all the vacation hours you earned and not used. You should get paid, and you do under 143 in the Civil Service Act, it doesn't matter. Whatever you were owed on that day that's inside the cap, you get paid. So we're going to pull one little piece out and say, for this, if you get fired, we're not going to pay you, even though we owe you that money if you were just under 143, you have to pay. So I don't think pulling it out and saying, we've got this standard over here that, can be argued back and forth as equitable or not, but this is money owed. No contract, you got to get paid for the time of which you have earned with the employer in sick leave and vacation days and holidays are earned money. When you leave for whatever reason, you should be paid up. You won't get paid in the future if you're terminated, but you won't exceed the cap that's set by the contract or the statute. So we look at this totally different, and having these indefinable, in good standing, you may just have enough time in and you don't want to mess with it. So you say, fine, I'll just retire. I don't want to go through and wait a year, 2 years to find out what happened in my arbitration hearing, just so I could collect what you already owe me. So you're correct. But a lot of them, you could just go down and just turn in your papers, and you say, well, you get it. Well, if you hang around to hear the charge, well, you don't get it. So I think we understand your position, and hopefully you understand ours. All right. This next part, there's some inequity, and we changed it over in Article 25. When the public safety officers, just for history's sake, the city had park officers, airport officers, and city marshals. And then there was a period of time in which the city then rolled those into a meet and confer agreement of their own. And it kind of got everybody caught up. I think it was 4 or 5 years. And then the city said, okay, it's time then, we're going to get rid of the airports and parks, and we're going to roll those people into the Austin Police Department. Now, there were some people who did not make the cut, and that the city and the association agreed. But for those who made the transition, we have different language over about the payout. So I guess simply put is that if you're here and you got the time above, then you should get the payouts above. And there shouldn't be a conflict with language that was put in there during the consolidation of the officers. They won't get any more, but they shouldn't get any less. Many of them right now have been here a long time. So that's really what this is. We think corrects two articles that were really in conflict. We don't need separating language. If they've been on the Austin Police Department and their accumulated time meets the criteria, then they get whatever they get. Okay. All right, go down. All right. The way this is worded, and this is the article on holidays, this is a preemption language, and the way it was worded, that the officers got holidays, vacation is prescribed in the article as of the effective date of this agreement. And my understanding is, after the agreement, the city added additional holiday and then argued that, well, you don't get it because this is all you agreed to. Well, we think if you just change it to during the term of this agreement, if the city adds it, then we don't have to come back and bargain over it again. Because if we didn't have this language in the contract, the state law already requires that officers get the same number of holidays and vacation days as other city workers. So we're not trying to get an advantage, but the city council adopts those holidays, and that's fine. And if you add a holiday, that's fine, but we shouldn't have to come back during the middle of the contract. We accept that's what it was, but in the future, if you add additional holidays, so this will be during the term of the agreement. That's the purpose of this. All right. We may look at this further, but today, and I put it in and out, actually up in the title, Association Access to Bulletin Boards, I'll insert cell phones and scratch pagers, or just, and so, I don't know, is there anybody in the room still have a pager? So it's just updating it. There's nothing else there. I did, if you'll do note, I put chief, his or her sworn designee. All right, this is the correction language that links up to Article 9. We think then that the officers who were consolidated from airport and parks and have served the city now, some long enough to retire. This makes it, it's just clear that they get whatever the rest of the officers get in Article 9. So, and I'm sure there was a reason for all this language during the transition and who had seniority and what, but enough time has passed to correct it. So that's all this is doing, is trying to get rid of some older language. And so if you came in under this provision, you get the same sick leave payout with all officers. And that's it.
All right, I'm trying to think about what the plan is. Do you have suggestions on the rest of the day? I appreciate you guys putting in a lot of work. You guys sent over a lot more articles than I thought we were gonna get today. We were working on a couple. We'll have for you probably a couple of also, you know, a little bit more low-hanging ones. We're talking to our lawyer about the grievance procedure article. Maybe a couple other ones, but not today, most likely. So, yeah, won't be today. I do have on my list that we're supposed to set up new dates. So, I don't know if y'all want to do that now.
Sure.
Okay.
That'll work, and then, once we do that, then I think we just adjourn and we'll use the time on our team to work on some other issues. So, what are you looking at in April?
So our April is pretty open.
We like Wednesdays.
Yes, we do, but I thought we had agreed all,
We sent them 2 dates,
yes,
16th and
no, 13 and
13 and 27 is options. We knew,
Okay, of April,
yes.
all right. I'll check with my team. I know what my calendar says, but I'll check to make sure that the team says we'll email you back. Those are both Wednesdays, so any opposition to the 6th and 20th too then?
I've got another meeting in Beaumont on the 6th. Aren't we meeting at the end of March? Like the 30th. So that just puts us out about every 2 weeks, not coming back the next week.
Okay.
13, 37.
Yeah, we'll go through it. So what, I guess, this might be easier. I told Bob I would call him after today's meeting, after I set some more dates with y'all in April, and so then he can pick some dates in April. What days don't work for you guys in April? Either because you think it's too soon after existing meeting, or for whatever calendar issues, and you don't have to answer now, but maybe that might be the easier route, because I think for at least labor relations, I'll talk to PD to see if they have any big department issues going on, but our April is kind of open, so I'd like to set up preferably more than 2 dates, but, you know, dates with y'all first, and then I can set up the rest with Bob afterwards.
Who's Bob?
Nix. Oh, you're just messing with him. I'm sorry, I missed the humor. I think this gives us, we got 2 more dates this month, and that gives us 2 more dates in April. And at that point, then we'll have almost everything on the table.
Okay.
So maybe at some point at which more things need, I don't think coming back the next week before groups, particularly as y'all are spread out, we're spread out. I don't want to have meetings just to have a meeting. I think that gives us a good pace. I think after we get through April, then we can look at, whether we need to have more closer or further apart. Plus, we have some issues on our end that we're gonna talk to you about probably next meeting that are fairly complicated, like promotional system or others, where we may wanna get some offline discussions with the department and the chief and get some ideas on how to craft our proposal. So we would like to put that on the table as soon as we can get it ready.
Okay, all right. You're right, we do have 2 more set for this month, so it's not mandatory we come up with dates today. I just had told Bob that I would call him back. So we'll go through and check 13th and 27th, and then we'll let you know. But I think we're good. I think we're also gonna take the time today to caucus on some of our other articles, so.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, well, thank you very much.
all right, thank you guys.